It was just after midnight in a secret bunker south of Moscow. The world was holding its breath, caught in the iciest grip of the Cold War. Deep underground, a Soviet officer stared at a screen, his heart pounding. A siren was blaring. A single phone call from him to his superiors would unleash the entire Soviet arsenal, effectively ending the world as we know it. This is the story of that phone call, and the man who, in a few terrifying minutes, held the fate of the world in his hands. A single word flashed in stark, red letters, launch. This was not a drill. This was the moment humanity had feared for decades. The electronic map showed a single missile screaming out of the American heartland, heading directly for the Soviet Union. Then another, and another. Within minutes, the system reported a full-scale American nuclear assault was underway. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Soviet Air Defense Forces, but on that night, he was the duty officer at Serpukhov 15, the secret command center for the Oko nuclear early warning satellite system. The system reported with the highest possible level of confidence that a single Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missile had been launched from a base in Montana. He was to verify the threat and immediately report it. A first strike, therefore, would not be a single missile. That was suicide. A real first strike would be a massive, coordinated launch of hundreds, if not thousands, of missiles at once. But as he stared at the screen, a deep, gnawing doubt began to creep into his mind. Over 100 of his subordinates were now looking at him, waiting for his command. The seconds were ticking by. The pressure was unimaginable. He had to make the call. Something felt wrong. The entire nuclear doctrine of the Cold War was based on mutual assured destruction, or MAD. This was the moment. On the other end of the line, the Soviet High Command was waiting for the one piece of information that would trigger Armageddon. If he was wrong and those missiles were real, his decision to delay the warning would cost the Soviet Union precious minutes, potentially crippling their ability to retaliate. He would be responsible for the destruction of his country. He would be executed as a traitor. Imagine the weight of that decision, the possibility that billions of lives rested on a gut feeling. Finally, the confirmation came. The ground-based radar saw nothing. The horizon was clear. The American missiles were not there. It had been a false alarm. He knew the satellite system was new, and he had been told it was not entirely trustworthy. He knew a 5-missile attack was strategically insane. The system's software had not been programmed to screen out this specific, freak celestial event. He also knew that the people who had designed the system were computer scientists. They weren't soldiers. He was neither rewarded nor punished. An official investigation found him at fault for not properly documenting the events in the logbook, but also acknowledged his prudent actions. It highlights the terrifying dangers of entrusting our survival to automated systems and rigid protocols. In an age of algorithms and artificial intelligence, his story is more relevant than ever. He was eventually reassigned to a less sensitive post and took early retirement. He lived in relative obscurity until the story was declassified in the late 1990s. But instead of confirming the attack, as protocol demanded, Petrov did something extraordinary. He reported a system malfunction. He received numerous international awards and was recognized by the United Nations. But Petrov himself never saw his actions as heroic. He always maintained he was simply in the right place at the right time, and that his military training, which taught him to be skeptical, had saved the day. His decision was a triumph of common sense and critical thinking over rigid, automated protocol. But his ordeal was not over. He had to wait. For agonizing minutes, he and his team stared at the screens, waiting for the missiles to either appear on ground-based radar or fail to appear at all. On September 26, 1983, a 3-minute phone call didn't happen. A button wasn't pushed. And because of one man's refusal to blindly follow orders, the world was allowed to continue. We all owe our lives to the man who did nothing. His job was simple: monitor the satellites and, if they detected an American launch, relay the warning up the chain of command without delay. Just 3 weeks before this incident, the world was outraged when the Soviets shot down a civilian airliner, Korean Airlines Flight 007, killing all 169 people on board, including a U.S. congressman. He was choosing his own human intuition over the data from a flawless, state-of-the-art computer. He had no other information to go on. The ground-based radar systems couldn't detect the missiles yet. They were still beyond the horizon. For these critical minutes, he was blind. The Soviets claimed the plane was on a spy mission. The West called it an act of barbaric murder. It was more than one, which made it more believable, but it was still not the massive salvo he would expect from the Americans. Every instinct in his gut was screaming that this was a false alarm. It was, as he would later describe it, an illogical starting point for World War III. As he was wrestling with this doubt, the system updated. A second missile had been launched, then a third, a fourth, and a fifth. The officer had minutes, perhaps seconds, to make a decision. His orders were unequivocal. He was the first line of defense in a system designed for one purpose: massive, retaliatory nuclear strike. The Soviet Union was viewed by the Reagan administration as an evil empire. American Pershing nuclear missiles had been deployed in West Germany, capable of striking Moscow in minutes. This is the story of Stanislav Petrov and the day he disobeyed orders and saved the world. To understand the sheer terror of September 26, 1983, you have to understand the paranoia and hostility of the time. 1983 was not a good year. The tension was suffocating. Retaliation was in the air. Both sides were on a hair trigger, their fingers hovering over the red button. The Soviet leadership, led by the aging and ailing Yuri Andropov, was deeply, genuinely paranoid that the United States was planning a decapitating first strike. They believed the NATO military exercise, Able Archer 83, was a cover for a real attack. This was the world Stanislav Petrov inhabited. Just after midnight, the brand new, multi-billion-dollar satellite system did exactly what it was designed to do. A siren split the air, the screens before Petrov lit up. Petrov's training kicked in. He had a direct line to the Soviet General Staff. The protocol was rigid and clear. The logic of MAD was that neither side would ever start a nuclear war because they knew the other side would retaliate with overwhelming force, ensuring the destruction of both nations. It would be an all-out attack designed to overwhelm Soviet defenses and destroy their ability to retaliate. One missile made no sense. The map was now a terrifying schematic of impending doom. The system was screaming that a multi-pronged attack was underway, but still, only 5 missiles. But his eyes told him otherwise. The computer system, the most advanced the Soviet Union had, was telling him the threat was real. He picked up the phone to his superiors. He told his commanders that the early warning system was providing false information. It was a monumental gamble. But if he was right, he would prevent a global nuclear holocaust triggered by a faulty machine. His decision was based on a simple, terrifying logic. He reasoned that they may not have programmed the system to account for every possibility. Imagine the silence in that bunker, broken only by the hum of electronics. Later investigation revealed the cause was a rare alignment of sunlight, reflecting off high-altitude clouds, which the satellite's sensors had misinterpreted as the infrared signature of a missile launch. Stanislav Petrov's role in this was kept secret for over a decade. When the world finally learned his name, he was hailed as a hero. The story of Stanislav Petrov is a chilling reminder of how close we came to accidental annihilation. During the Cold War, it demonstrates that human intuition, critical thinking, and the courage to question the data in front of you can be the last, most important line of defense.